Hello and welcome back to the AP Psychology exam review videos where we're diving into each and every unit. Quick reminder that these are broad overviews and I hope that they point out to you areas where you're going to want to dive deeper into your studying. Make sure that you click the link below to grab the study guides that accompany each of these videos, and let's get started. So I've broken down the basic learning topics as outlined similarly to College Board's CED or their learning targets. All of those being listed there for the screen for you, which includes the lifespan, right? Unit 6 is all about development. But then you'll also see on the screen here the 2 skills that are involved, and it's the same ones as every other unit except for Unit 1 and 2. So if you didn't catch those, make sure you go back and see the Unit 1 and 2 videos where we talk about Skill 2 and how those are involved. So all of the standards that all of the concepts that we'll see in this video, you need to have concept understanding for skill 1 and be able to apply those to a given scenario or prompt, like in an FRQ or multiple choice question. But then skill 3, the scientific investigation, being able to analyze psychological research studies, right? So you need to be able to analyze psychological research studies in the lifespan and physical development in childhood, as well as moral development, as told to us from College Board. So it's really important that you take note there. Okay, so lifespan and physical development includes conception, right? Again, this is just a broad overview and making sure that you understand what happens at conception and that only one sperm can fertilize an egg, but making sure that you also remember the difference between identical and fraternal twins and what happens with the zygote there. And that identical twins is monozygotic or zygotic, which is one egg that splits into 2, whereas fraternal twins are when the woman ovulates 2 eggs that are fertilized by 2 separate sperm. And then understanding gestation and how we go from an egg to a fertilized egg being a zygote to an embryo to a fetus, right? And then in human development, we don't become a baby until we are physically born, until we are birthed into the world, right? And then understanding genetics versus the environment and how lots of factors in both of those, genes and the environment, can influence both during prenatal development and then in infancy as well. So for instance, nutrition, illness, substance abuse, and teratogens that the mother, right, might come in contact with. Teratogens being those outside substances that then impact the development of the fetus. So things like fetal alcohol syndrome occur, but then even influenza having an impact on the development of the baby. And then the development of motor skills is important too once the child is born, right? And understanding the baby has to sit up, and when they normally do that, it's around 6 months independently. Then they crawl around average 9 months, they walk around 12 months, and then they're running, right? About 3 to 6 months later, they're taking off and they're running. So understanding that physical maturation and development of motor skills. Social development, you want to understand all things about attachment, specifically with Harry Harlow's rhesus monkeys and how he showed with the wire mother and the cloth mother that the monkey sought out comfort from the artificial mothers, not just physical nurturance, which is nutrients, right, and food, and that in our development, that of animals and human beings, we need more than just our biological needs met. And then Ainsworth with her strange situation and how she showed different types of attachment, including secure and insecure, avoidant and ambivalent types of insecure attachment. And here's the kicker, how our type of attachment influences us later. And that research shows securely attached children generally tend to be more well-developed when they're older and able to learn more and develop in different areas. Parenting styles as laid out by Baumrind, that's her name. Understanding the difference between the 2 confusing ones. Authoritarian, think totalitarian, very strict, expecting blind obedience. You do as I say because I'm your parent. I don't need to explain why. Whereas authoritative is more democratic in that I want, as the parent, I want the child to have an understanding of why the rules exist and maybe even have a say in the rules, but still having expectations and setting standards for the child. Permissive being I don't really have standards. I'm going to provide you what you need and essentially let you do whatever you want. And then uninvolved sometimes isn't even seen as a parenting style because it's neglect, right? It's child abuse and neglect because they really don't do anything for the child. Cognitive development is your biggest understanding needs to be with Piaget's cognitive development stages. Sensory motor being very focused on the baby experiencing life through their senses. So think of things like object permanence, right? That's a vocab term, and making sure you understand the vocab terms for each of these stages. Pre-operational vocab term being egocentrism and conservation, and that they lack conservation until they get to concrete operations. And then the last stage being formal operations, where they develop more abstract thinking. Vygotsky also did a lot of research with cognitive development and is very well known in the educational psychology realm. And he said that there's really no stages, kind of opposite of Piaget. He came up with the zone of proximal development and said that true education and meaningful learning happens in between what the child knows and what they can know with the help of another, right? Meaning their teacher or parent. And so the social cultural theory of development he kind of contributed to and created, of the interaction of the child with society through teachers and parents, is really how they are developing. Adolescence and adulthood. So Erikson's stages, making sure you know every single one of these. And the general ages. I'm going to run through these really quickly, so you might want to pause, but I am going to run through them hoping to show you ways to help you remember these. Trust versus mistrust is in infancy when you're first born. You are brand new to this world. You need to know if you can trust it or not. If your needs are met by your primary caregiver, you develop trust for this world and can move on to the other stages. Autonomy versus shame and doubt is smaller toddlers, and that they're understanding that they can do things for themselves. They can grab their shoes and they're trying to learn how to put them on or buckle themselves. If they can't do that, if parents don't support them, then they feel shame and doubt on their abilities. Initiative versus guilt, meaning that they can take the initiative to do things for themselves and that they don't have to be told, that they can go and explore and do things on their own without mom and dad. And if they aren't helped there and encouraged, they're going to feel guilty for ever doing anything separate from their parents. Industry versus inferiority is more elementary aged, where think of on recess, you're really learning what you're good at, whether it's tetherball or running or the monkey bars. You're learning areas where you're really good, especially in school and in activity and sports. Identity versus role confusion is adolescence. You're understanding who you are, what your preferences might be for the bigger decisions in life, and who you're going to be as an adult. And then in early adulthood is intimacy versus isolation. This is where you normally find your life partner, right? And you start developing lifelong relationships and those intimate relationships. Generativity versus stagnation is middle adulthood, where you're really focused on your career and you are either generative, meaning feeling really good and like you have a calling and you're making lots of movement in life, or stagnant and you just go through the motions. And the last stage, meaning at the end of life, is you either look back on your life with integrity or regret and despair. Another part of this is moral development with Kohlberg. Making sure you remember these names is helpful, but the pre-conventional, meaning I do the right thing because I get rewarded or punished. Conventional, meaning I do the right thing because others are watching. Post-conventional is I do the right thing because I know there's a reason why you should do the right thing, and it is bigger and better than me or any other individual. Now, gender and sexual orientation, understanding traditional gender roles and how those develop, and what, not necessarily just traditional gender roles, but any kind of gender role that is taught or somehow projected onto a child. And that happens through things like gender typing, in making boys wear blue and girls wear pink, right? And that the traditional gender roles are kind of taught and forced upon a child. Social learning theory says that children learn simply by observing what other people, adults of their sex do. So as a little girl, you watch mom and grandma and aunts and see what they do. As a little boy, you watch dad and grandpa and uncles and see what they normally do, what is normal for them. Gender schema theory then just adds the thought of the child. Okay, so gender schema theory is social learning theory. It just adds cognition, hence the word schema, to the process. So in a question, what this will look like is the child observes grandma baking cookies and grandpa out cutting the grass. As a female child, she thinks to herself, thinking, there's the key word, I am a girl and grandma is a girl, therefore I should be baking cookies. All right, that's Unit 6 for you super fast. I hope you find it helpful and stay tuned for the next video.